Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sporting News Podcast. I am your host, Dash Mars, and I do apologize if you're hearing a lot of fans in my room right now. It is very hot up here in the Great White North, but I'm ready to give this news out to you guys. So basically, what this show is going to be about is I'm just going to cover some news from different types of sports, give my topics and my intakes on it, and also maybe later on I will give some fantasy tips and tricks for some of you guys who play fantasy sports. Because, ironically enough, my first year of fantasy sports ever, I came second place in a football league I was in, and I came fifth in another one that I was in, and I won both fantasy basketball leagues that I was in. So, I will definitely be going over some tips on that as well. Hopefully I can give them to you. Hopefully they're good. And let's go ahead and jump right into it, shall we? Starting off with hockey news, as we have the Tampa Bay Lightning beating the Montreal Canadiens. I believe the score was 5-1 the last I heard. So this is going to be a very good series, I feel. I feel like it could go to 7 games. It could definitely be a very close match because Montreal has been a very defensive-minded team throughout the entire playoffs. And Carey Price has just basically turned on God mode and has stopped everything. And of course, the Montreal Canadiens, as a Canadian and as a hockey fan, I'm rooting for Montreal to win it so we can finally have a Canadian team win the Cup. But as a Leafs fan, I really, it's tough for me to say that they're in the finals, but they earned it and, go from there. But I digress. We'll move on. So, a couple re-signings, actually, around the hockey leagues, too. If you didn't hear already, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has re-signed with the Edmonton Oilers on an 8-year deal worth I think it was like $41 million. Tough to remember, but that's big news because that gives Edmonton another piece that they keep with Nugent Hopkins and Connor McDavid. I definitely feel like Edmonton, if they get like a couple more pieces to help them out, they could be a contender for the Cup sometime down the road. As well as, according to the Maple Leafs, they have also re-signed Wayne Simmons on a 2-year deal for, I believe it was $1.4 million. Haven't seen, just looking through my notes to make sure. Yeah, $1.4 million. So I'm very excited for that. Wayne was a very good player for the Leafs at times. And I'm very excited to see what the future holds for Toronto. Hopefully, we can get some better help at the goalies. But that's just me, though. All right, so now we're going to move on here to basketball. So, the Detroit Pistons picked up the first overall pick in this year's NBA draft. Now, it's been a crazy year in basketball, I'll tell you, because 4 teams that nobody thought would ever make it this far are playing for a shot at the finals. And I guess while I'm here, I'll give my predictions. I think it's going to be Suns and Hawks for the finals. But if I had to pick who could win the finals, very tough to say because Trae Young has been absolutely dominant for the Hawks in the playoffs, as well as Devin Booker has been very solid for the Suns. So if I had to make a choice, honestly, I could probably see it maybe being Atlanta with Trae Young. Because if Trae Young can keep playing the way he is and can, come off his injury and not get injured again in the NBA Finals, I feel like it could be Arizona. But if Phoenix can get into the finals and beat the Clippers, then I feel like it could be Phoenix, even with Trae Young not being injured, because Phoenix has had to go through a lot of adversity, and now they're taking on a team with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, a lot of big name stars on the Clippers team, and if the Clippers can go to the finals, they could have a good shot to win it. Same with the Bucks, the Bucks have a good shot to make it as well. So I'm pretty, it's a pretty close race, no matter how you look at it. But like I said, for me, I think the prediction will be Suns Hawks for the NBA Finals. I'll put money on that if I had any, but I'm broke. So another big thing is the Raptors have the 4th overall pick in the 2022 NBA draft. Now, this year has been crazy for the Raptors, but the last couple of years have been kind of crazy. With them losing Kawhi Leonard in 2020 and then having a terrible year this year, We could be on the verge of losing Kyle Lowry and maybe Pascal Siakam in trades. So Raptors really have to pick a great, great guy in the draft. I feel like if they do trade Pascal for the deal that for like some point guard help and stuff to help with Lowry, I feel like we could get a center power forward type guy in the draft, and that could help us out. But if we lose Lowry, then we could just draft a point guard. But it's tough to say, really, for the Raptors. I mean, they definitely could use a lot of help and everything like that. So here's just hoping that they can, do that. Now, one thing that I am very, very excited about is definitely fantasy sports. I love fantasy football, fantasy basketball. Like I said, I did very well in those. I'm a big NFL guy. We will get into some NFL news here in a minute, but I'm going to give you all a little bit of a tip that I would say for fantasy basketball. Make sure the first thing that I did was, I believe I went point guard first in a couple of my drafts. So get point guard first. Make sure you find a really reliable point guard. But of course, it also depends too. If you're in like a very big league, it'd be very tough to try and get a lot of these guys. But I think I was in, and I think they were both 10-team drafts, and I had decently high picks, so I was able to get like a lot of good players. But the thing with NBA drafts are there's only 15 players in the NBA that you have for your team. So you don't need to draft a whole ton of point guards. You don't need to draft a whole ton of centers. You mostly need, I would say, roughly 2 per position. And make sure you have guys that can do, say, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward. Make sure you have guys that are two-way guys. That way you can be able to, diversify and get as many points as you can. Because for me, I found I had a lot of guys who could play power forward and center, and a lot of guys who could play point guard, shooting guard. And that could really help you out with a ton of lineups and stuff. Because if you can try to max out your points and get as many players as you can onto your team that are really, really good, you'll be able to get a ton more points that way doing that. Plus, I find that it's weekly too, and you also have to be mindful of your injuries. I was fortunate enough, I didn't have many injuries on the players that I had, so I was thankful there to have that. But you also have to be mindful too. If you have somebody that's going to be injured for a while or they're out for the season, drop them immediately, get a replacement at that position, could easily help you out. But like I said, I was fortunate enough to not have injuries, but if you do get some guys that are injured and you can't replace them, then take them out, put them on the IL, grab another player, and go from there with it. If you have to drop them, then that would probably be your best option for it. All right, moving on. Now we're going to go to NFL. So I, along with probably every other person, watches NFL. Of course, up here too, we also have the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League. So basically, the field's bigger, the game's faster, and we're allowed to have 12 people on the field. I'll explain a little bit in this as well, for you guys as well, because I have played both, and I can easily tell you that Canadian football is a lot tougher than NFL football because it is a lot faster, and they don't stop that clock for anything. The only time they'll stop it is for a timeout or an injury, which hardly ever happens. So you have to be quick and on your feet. And you're only allowed to have 3 downs played instead of 4 downs. So you have to make sure on your 3rd down conversions that you can get it. Because if not, it's a turnover on downs. So the biggest thing I would say for people who, love football but want something incredible, look up on YouTube. You can find CFL highlights. They're all over the map. We're very crazy, different scoring system and everything like that. But it's definitely a lot of fun if you're a Canadian and you're always wanting to go to games. It's a great place to go for a game. Myself personally, I am a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan, and I have been since, I think since I lived up here. I moved back in 2012. I was born here in 95. So I think 2012 was when I really started to pick up steam on the Cats more often. Because in the States, we couldn't get CFL football. But when I did move back up here, I did get back into it and like the Cats more. And every Labor Day, you'll always find us at a Labor Day game. Just letting you know that. Every Labor Day, a lot of Canadians are at home watching a Labor Day Classic game or at the games. So don't bug us on Labor Day. But anyway, so the CFL season is scheduled to start August 5th, a 14-game schedule. Usually it's 18 games, but of course with COVID, it's been a madhouse and it's been absolutely crazy, to say the least. So I'm excited for this. As a Cats fan, seeing them lose to Winnipeg in the Grey Cup, I definitely feel like we have the team to do it. We just need to make sure that our defense can step up and get better. And I feel like the Cats could easily win the Grey Cup. And it is being played in Hamilton. So if the Tiger Cats were to win and go to the Grey Cup, it'd be in their home turf. So that'd be something incredible. But enough from the CFL for right now. We're going to talk about the NFL and just all the crazy news that's going on in the NFL. Like Trevor Lawrence going first overall in the NFL draft to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I kind of had a feeling that was going to be the move, simply because Lawrence has been one of the highly touted prospects for quite some time now. And now my question is, can Trevor Lawrence make it in the NFL? Will he have the right protection with Urban Meyer now as the head coach? I say personally, I think he could do well, but Jacksonville needs to have a couple more offensive guys to be able to sign, to be able to, protect Trevor Lawrence. That way he's not on his butt more than often. Because that's the problem in New York. They have no help for their quarterbacks at offensive line positions. They got Mekhi Becton last year, but they really need to have a couple of more pieces on the offensive line to be able to help Zach Wilson out. And for me, I am a Panthers fan, so I'm very excited we got J.C. Horn. We've definitely been needing help on defense for some time. But I'm excited to see how Sam Darnold does. Because Sam Darnold was the quarterback originally in New York, but then we traded him. We got rid of Teddy Bridgewater, sent him off to Denver. And I am very, very excited, to say the least. Because I definitely feel like with the new crop of guys that we got, we could definitely, I'm not going to say we're going to make the Super Bowl or make the playoffs, but I definitely feel like we'll be a lot better than what we were last year, because God knows we need a ton of help. So from N22, that came out. News came out about that the other day. Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady are on the cover. And speaking of those two, they had an insane Super Bowl where Tom Brady just proved that he is timeless and won his 7th Super Bowl title. My question is anybody going to be able to stop Brady and the Bucs, especially if they re-signed all the guys that they have? I don't think they've lost anybody to free agency or anything like that. I really think the Bucs could repeat as Super Bowl champions. But the question I have is, could Patrick Mahomes somehow be able to find a way to get more help? I mean, I know they signed tackle help for Patrick Mahomes, especially because he's just running a lot. Excuse me. So I feel like with these new tackles that they have now, if they can learn how to pass protect, then Mahomes and them could easily, I feel, get back to it. And it could be another Chiefs-Bucs rematch for the crown. And who knows? Maybe this time around it could be Kansas City that gets the honor of being called the NFL champs. Now, I will tell you one big tip that I learned in fantasy football. The biggest thing for me, draft your quarterback first. I say that because there's not many good quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, I know there's a bunch of them, like Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Brady, all those guys. So the biggest thing, make sure you draft your quarterback first. If you have a decently high pick, you could get somebody like a Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or whoever. That is the biggest thing, is quarterback first. Because I was fortunate, I got Josh Allen in one of my leagues, and I got Aaron Rodgers in another league. So I had two good quarterbacks. Now, unfortunately for me, I had a lot of injuries, and I had a ton of defense is another big one too. make sure you find a really good defense as well. So quarterback and defense would be two big ones. I know a lot of people love to try and go running back first and whatever. There's a lot of good running backs. You can always find a good running back in the later rounds. You can always find good receivers in the later rounds. I say quarterbacks and defense are two of the big focal points. Defense, though, usually isn't until later rounds, so you're fine there. But I always say offensive weapons first more than anything else. Now, for me, Josh Allen went off for me last year, and I was so fortunate to have Josh Allen do very, very well for me in fantasy football. And of course, wide receivers, like we said, we have Diggs, we have Julio, who's now going to Tennessee, excuse me. He's going to Tennessee, and that's going to help out Tannehill a lot. So, definitely always get quarterback first in fantasy football drafts. I feel like that could be a very smart move, and it could definitely help you out in case you can't get like a good running back. So say you can't get like a McCaffrey, or you can't get like a Joe Mixon. You can always find guys a little bit later on, but always make sure you have a quarterback. That way you're not scouring and you're not getting left with somebody like, Derek Carr or, Fitzpatrick or whoever. I mean, sure, they've been around for a while, but some quarterbacks aren't that good. And for God's sakes, if you get Dak Prescott, let's just hope to God that he doesn't get injured again. But for now, that's just it for the NFL news that I have. I have time for, I think, one more. I'm going to do a couple of wrestling things. WWE releasing a lot of wrestlers. Like, what the hell are y'all doing? First off, you get rid of Braun Strowman and Aleister Black and a bunch of big names, and now it's just like you're cleaning house. Like, I understand that it's a business and everything like that, but half the time you're just feeding half these guys and they're going off to AEW. AEW, I definitely feel, is doing very, very well too, with Jungle Boy giving Kenny Omega a great run for his money for the AEW World title. That was a fantastic match. I definitely wished it could have been Jungle Boy, but Kenny Omega is like red hot right now, so there's no way he was losing. But good news for Jungle Boy, he actually has a new girlfriend in the form of Anna Jay. Those two look very cute together, I will say, and lucky bastard. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the Sporting News Podcast. It's a bit of a shorter one. I'm going to try and definitely do a little bit longer ones if I'm able to. Definitely just work on more news. It's just the first episode, so I'm still getting my feet wet with this. But hope y'all enjoyed this. If you did, then if y'all could show me some love and support, I would greatly appreciate that. But until next time, I'm Dash Mars with all the sporting news for your Sporting News Podcast. And until next time, let's be great, have fun, and have a beautiful day.